Hey everyone, welcome to the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. Really excited about today's presenter and topic. Scott Wilder is a good friend of mine. Scott was formerly at Udacity, he's currently at HubSpot. And the topic is going to be how to leverage chatbots across the customer journey. So Scott, thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So just you can see what I look like, and then I'm going to now go to my screen share. Yes, I met Dennis actually when I was at Marketo back in the good old days.
That's right.
But now I am at HubSpot, but I'm in week 3 of HubSpot. So I'll talk more about this presentation, which will focus on how to leverage chatbots across the customer journey, but it will be more about the Udacity journey. And for those folks who don't know Udacity, I'll go into that a little bit. So that's me. So I've changed my colors. At Marketo, I was purple. Then I went from black. Now I'm at HubSpot. So today, talk a little bit about who I am, my journey at HubSpot, at Udacity, my kind of like philosophy, which kind of rolls into how I think about chat and chatbots in the customer journey. And then I think it's important also when you look at something like chatbots is to really think about it from how it, not only from the customer experience, but how it all works with in terms of your technology stack. And then, Intercom. So we used Intercom at Udacity. HubSpot has their own chat technology. But I think, when you're looking at these tools, it's really interesting to see like how their functionality and how their offering can work in your journey. Who am I? So here are some of the companies I've worked at. Native New Yorker. I tell people that I've worked up and down Highway 101 and was blessed to work with some of the first projects that involved web browsers at Silicon Graphics, Marketplace and ads at Webcrawler and AOL, community, and recently, and just like beginning to the last 2 years dabble in voice, which I think is another interesting technology. Maybe I'll come back sometime if you have me to talk about voice. So who is Udacity? Again, this is for context of later content. So Udacity has 10 million students worldwide who've graduated. Basically, the key thing about their model is like Coursera, where I also worked, they give a platform to the customer, and then a university will put their content on there, maybe repurpose their content. Udacity, what they try and do is surround you with human love by having professors, mentors, reviewers, etc. All real time, so that it's project based, but also a lot of human interaction, which is really important, especially these days. When I was there, and even now at HubSpot. By the way, my role at HubSpot is customer engagement. And so I can take a deeper dive of that if you want later. This growth mindset is really important. So, there's a lot of people who talk about growth marketing. When we work with chat, I'd say a lot of it is based, growth mindset is on like rapid experimentation, also mapping to the customer journey and optimization. And then what I like to do is, as I go through this and identify great customers in our chat experiences, I often will reach out to them one-on-one, and just like you guys have asked me to do today, I'll ask them to join my staff meetings or my team meetings. So, we can learn not only asynchronously via chat, but we can learn real time in a group discussion. So when I got to HubSpot, I got to Udacity, we started to, they had some form of chat there. And so it was really quite the exercise to really change things. And I think, everybody's going through a lot of change right now. And, as you guys know, when you change somebody's website, the users freak out. So when you change, a way of using a technology internally, there's always some groups that freak out. So in the early days, I got to Udacity and I was doing this, I describe it as the Wild West. So, I inherited the Intercom chat instance. It was basically one tool, and like almost everybody in the company had access to the back end. So you can imagine the challenges with that. So I guess the key takeaway here is I'd love to say I believe in democracy when managing some of these tools, but I think, you focus on who are the critical few who really need access to it. Because one of the things that we ran into is when multiple people had access, there'd be multiple conflicting messages that we're sending to the customers. We had no SLAs in terms of response time. There is little, if any, integration with other systems, and just a real lack of ownership. So, I'm talking about chat and the customer journey, but I think it's really important to get the process in place as well. So one of the first things I did is, focus on bringing order to chaos to order. But it was interesting too, because I also had senior management telling me, like, we should just tell everybody to call us when they have a problem. And so I fought hard and, won the battle that, phone is not better than chat in a lot of instances. And so why is that? There's we're more and more a multitasking culture, for better or worse. I think a really key nuance is understanding your audience. And so since Udacity focuses on, machine learning, artificial intelligence, it tends to be a more technical audience that wants to learn, which means the numbers of more kind of introverted people and people who want to process information versus just kind of respond real time is a lot greater. Now, I can't quantify that, but I can say from a qualitative perspective that's been true, and that was one of the things I learned, and I also just talking to users. And then the classic younger generation growing up with chat, and it could be more cost effective. So we built out a chat team. It was in three different continents, India, Europe, and the United States. And so today, as I leave Udacity, it's used in all parts of the life cycle. The second thing, which I deal with a lot, is automation can't be personal, and it can't be our friend. I think there are ways to automate. I think a lot of times the most obvious thing is the messages that come. So when I say automation, somebody says, like, how do I do X, Y, Z? And 3 messages come up and say, click A, click B, click C. But it's pretty unusual for having a company that adds its own personality into those messages. They tend to be almost out of the box. So I think, what we've learned a lot is automation has been good for routing on the back end and getting chat to the right person, but also we have tried to make it more friendly and approachable. So if you want more myths, more than happy to answer that versus Q&A. So now we talk a little about infrastructure. So when I got to Udacity, a lot of new infrastructure was being put in place. And again, I think it's important to think about how all these things kind of fit into the greater picture. Also, you can see some of the technologies we use there. The other key thing was, I think we have tendency, I'm at HubSpot now, and everybody after 3 weeks they're saying, can you launch this? Can you launch that? But to really be mindful and say, okay, let's plan this out on a calendar. And I try and do 1 or 2 big bets every quarter and really try and learn from that experience. So you can see in Q1 2019, that was the big Intercom relaunch, and really took that month, or that quarter, I should say, to really learn how to improve things over time. I'm not going to talk through everything here, but it's really important to understand how everything works together, and that if you're capturing valuable information from Intercom and chat, to make sure that it flows into your CRM and flows into your other systems in the company. Because chat is just one channel where we're customer facing. Another channel would be your, say, customer success folks. And at Udacity, it was both B2C and B2B. Okay, so this is why Dennis asked me here. So, when I think about chat, I think it can have benefits in each aspect of the customer life cycle. So from activation, we used it when people came to the site for meet and greet, and you can actually personalize those messages with Intercom or Drift or any of the other tools based on what page somebody goes to. You could also do it by audience. So we would do right up front, we had course information on the site, but what we learned is that when people would ask a question, they seemed to be more engaged. I guess it's it's common sense, but they seem even more engaged even when there was a bot saying, okay, you asked about machine learning. Here's the information about that course or that learning path. In engagement, we would use it in the classroom, as we call it, and behind the firewall for onboarding. And so, I think we all wrestle with onboarding. It's interesting that a new term I learned at HubSpot was everboarding. So they use the term everboarding. So, you can use it throughout that whole process, and then classroom discussion and just teacher support. And I talked about that human support aspect. You could use it for just, hey, you took this course. Why don't you take this course, right? So you took SQL. Maybe you want to get into some more in-depth machine learning courses. You can use it for upsell, cross-sell. So one of the things we do is, as your course is coming to an end, we can offer you the upsell path. Or even if you're about to cancel, right, and you click the cancel button, we might do upsell. And then because we build these modules that are learning tools that people might want to hold on to later on, think about it, I'll show my age here, is like, holding that copy of Monarch Notes later on. If people come back to the site, we can highlight, we can use chat, we can use it for career services. It's great for saying, hey, alumni, we need like a testimonial on a certain topic. So we use it all across the life cycle here, Udacity does, and HubSpot does as well. Again, another way of looking at this in those 3 different stages. And then I think, I pointed from an infrastructure perspective, rolling out everything, but it's really important to say, okay, I'm going to communicate with this customer. What's the chat team saying versus the email team? One of my roles at HubSpot is to try and make sure that we have consistent messaging and timing and things like that, etc. So build models. So this is literally taken from one of our reports. So here we build a model looking at product propensity, and the other one is looking at an MQL model. And basically what we're doing with, you could do it with a Drift or an Intercom, is you can upload, certain cohorts into the tool. And so when those people come to the site, then you can serve different content to them. So here you can see an example of somebody comes to the homepage. Rashava, who is you can see his little picture in the upper right-hand corner, is engaging in some activation, acquisition type of content. Again, this can be customized based on the page they're on or the type of user. You could ask, we call them nanodegrees at Udacity, but you can ask course-related information. And a lot of times, one of the most common questions is, am I good enough? Do I have the right qualifications? How difficult is the course? It's funny that, I bear the responsibility. The website didn't do a really good job of talking about difficulty of the course, but I was able to get to that need faster by using chat. And there is something about then your people who are answering chat become kind of coaches, saying here are the requirements based on what you told me. I think you can handle it, or maybe you should take another course. In classroom messaging is something I alluded to earlier. So there, we're reaching out to see how satisfied somebody is about a course. Just another in-class messaging. So this is what the back end part of Intercom looks like. Drift is similar, HubSpot as well. The box on the right-hand side shows that the person who's behind the curtain, who's acting like Oz, who's the chat moderator, the green, the name can flow through if the person's logged in. But here we're also tracking the different courses that somebody might take. All that information, if you remember the chart about infrastructure flows into Salesforce, flows into our other systems. So if you go from left to right, the second column is who all the moderators chatted with. The third column, left to right, is the actual chat. And then you have your data on the right-hand side. And here you can see that if we didn't pick it up based on the site behavior, we can just assign which course that person is interested in, which feeds into our email system, our CRM system, all the other systems we have in the company. So there are some other tools too, which are really interesting. So I think a lot of this is influenced by my content education when Dennis schooled me way in the past in content, is we start taking the transcripts of these conversations and really mining that information to understand, what people are talking about, what are some of the themes, what language they're using, like the way a novice, somebody who wants to learn about Excel versus somebody that wants to learn about data science, the vocabulary they're using is really different. It can highlight deep issues we need to take a deep dive into. So I think the key takeaways are, one is the integration with other systems, two is the deep dive into other issues, etc. Okay, so let's change gears here a little bit. Okay, now I'm at HubSpot. So at HubSpot, some of the things we're working on is like, more integration with the product, with chat. How do we leverage the learnings and successes, automation. And then, I highlight community learning. So I think a lot of chat work is kind of an add-on at first in companies. And so we're really saying, okay, we have these multiple channels. They all are not under, but they all impact customer engagement or prospect engagement. And so really, how do we share those learnings across the organization? So in summarizing, because I want to leave a lot of time for questions, is chat is pretty easy to roll out. And so that's another key thing. And then you can build in all the fancy back end stuff over time, but it's, I won't put a time frame on it because it really depends on like how good you are, but it's, how comfortable you are with technology. But certainly under 30 days, and certainly you can do it under 2 weeks and even less. Really a great opportunity to humanize the experience. How many times do we wonder how we can humanize our web experience more? It can take people from, different stages in their customer journey. Globalization. So we were able to quickly identify, like based on the audiences, looking at Google Analytics and other things, where our audiences are coming from, and then route people's chats to somebody who can respond in the same language. I talked about targeting, real-time responding. And the other thing too is, there's a lot of, unless you have a community or something like that, you can really dig deep into the complex issues in terms of like how to do things and workarounds. And what I don't call out here is the importance of building or having kind of a content repository to keep that information, right? So if somebody wants to know how Zoom integrates with HubSpot, for example, and it's more than a 3-sentence answer, we can obviously put that in a chat, but another person's going to ask that information or ask that question. Some of the challenges, it is challenging to go be geosensitive because there's scaling, there's training, etc. Setting expectations. So it's really funny, Intercom, I hope nobody is here from Intercom, but they're there in the chat business. And when you chat with them, they send a message on their website saying, we'll get back to you within hours, or sometimes a day plus. And I love Intercom, but there's kind of a disconnect there in terms of, they do set the expectation, but in this world, I think people want it faster. And then sharing learnings across the organization. So I gave the content repository example and another just now. And I think, there's a lot of learnings like, okay, let's go back to that example of the Zoom integration, share that with the product team so they understand what people are saying. I used to work at Intuit, and I would walk into a meeting with Scott Cook because the company was smaller than the founder, and I'd have all my fancy data and charts, and basically would put it in the trash and say, tell me what customers are saying, and I know there's a lot of content people here, so you guys, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but data nerds like me need to be reminded of that. So key learnings, profitable areas is really interesting. So when we launched, we would have certain regions of the country that were more profitable. And so identifying those, and we would put more resources into the real-time responses for that. Creating chatbots is okay. Quality review. So being really stringent about like how often you do a quality review, and I can give you a deeper dive on that during the QA if you want, about like how do you review your team's chats. Invest in training, benchmarks are good. And the slide about all the different technologies, I think we like here in Silicon Valley, we like things that are sparkly and eye candy. So, but I go back saying, just don't boil the ocean at once. So that's it. I know it's a bit of a sprint. More than happy to share all of this with you, but I think, these things, I think Q&A is also really important. So let me turn off the sharing. That was my 26-minute sprint. No question is crazy, so go for it.
So folks, feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. You can also use the chat. I will start with a question, Scott. So I have little experience with chatbots except for one client project just recently where I helped. There was a team that implemented Drift, and I helped with a little bit of the, what is it called? Is it called the flow? Like the script on how you engage if you're unattended? Yeah. And in this case, it was still a challenge getting the sales team to log in. So we're depending on the, I guess, autopilot. It's running unattended and interacting with users.
Yeah.
How do you? And I think you cover this in custom bots where you said after hours.
Yeah.
How do you think about structuring the flow when it's just the bot interacting without a human with a human? Like there's no one on the client on the there's no human. It's all the chatbot software. How did you structure the flows to engage with users?
Yeah, so I looked at basically user behavior on the website, user behavior with KBs, user behavior in some other channels, and saw like what path people were going down on the site and KBs when they had questions. And then, it's almost like a decision tree diagram. And so I went through that process and then mapped out the type of questions people would ask. And, some of you might know about the 5 whys, not wise people, not wise men, WHYS. And so the 5 whys is like, if somebody says you need to fix your car and you go, why? You say, so it's going to run faster. Well, why do you want it to run faster? And so when you go through those 2 exercises, decision trees and the whys, it helps inform the type of questions, or sorry, the path that you should lay out. And then I also found some customers, probably not the right thing to say, but who are guinea pigs. And I also kind of asked them about like, how we're thinking about this. So I'm really big on co-creation. And so I got them involved in the process as well. And then the last point is, you can look at the outages, my word, or similar to bounce rates of when people just fall off the path, so to speak, when they click on the first item that comes up and then they don't click anymore, right? And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, but so that's how I thought about it. So.
Got it. Yeah, I think the way we structured on this project, it's pretty easy if there's strong interest from the visitor, like that the visitor wants to speak to sales or get a quote. That's pretty easy to guide them to the right place. It's more of the looser, just trying to engage someone at a top of the funnel basis where it's hard to do that if you're just trying to pre-write a script.
Yeah. No, it's definitely challenging, and there's a lot of trial and error. And, you could push back and say, if you look at path analysis, path analysis is really hard on a website because there's so many different paths. Right. But you kind of have to put a stake in the ground and say, so at Udacity, it was like homepage, or, it could be a different page, landing page based on SEO. And then we had kind of our topic, like, was it machine learning versus AI? And then we dug into the courses. And so, we just made an assumption that that's a common path, right? And then we had we could see if people were kind of bailing when we were doing that. But, with a more complex product line, it gets even more challenging, so.
More of a logistical question. Let's say I'm a Udacity user, a registered user. I haven't come to the site in a while, so I've now returned to the Udacity site, and I saw that you had all those systems connected on the back end. How does Intercom know who I am?
Yeah, so great question. So Intercom can pick up that information if you're logged in.
So to Udacity or to Intercom?
To Udacity.
Udacity. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And then, so that's one way. And then sometimes it will, well, and then it will also pick up information about you. So, you know, if you're not logged in your location, it knows what page you've looked at, right? So,
Okay.
you know, you're from, you know, you're from the United Kingdom and you're interested in AI, and you're interested in a specific class in AI. So the person who's chatting real time behind the scenes has all this information, and it's also flowing into your CRM system. And then if you're, you know, as you move forward in time, you could have some of, you know, some of that information could flow back from other systems. So, but if you think about the visitor coming to the site who's not logged in, it's like those 3 or 4 pieces of, oh, and then if they have their company domain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with Clearbit, you can integrate data that says some more information, large company, small company, things like that.
Got it. Okay. Anyone in the audience with questions? Dan, Andrea? Dan, we didn't have did we have a chatbot running on DNN? I forgot.
We did not. I don't think
Did
so.
not. Okay.
Yeah, the chat bots were us. Part of the responsibility of being a salesperson was to check into the system.
Okay.
I don't recall what system that was at the time, but yeah.
Oh no, but so no, we did have software where you were behind the scenes, literally chatting, right?
If yeah, true.
Right.
Yeah, if someone came through, and then again, it was our responsibility to kind of cover that, or account management would. Yeah.
That's
so
right.
in that sense, but you know, typically using HubSpot all the way around is a great way to go. As Scott will.
Yeah, I mean,
continue,
I definitely drink the orange waters, but yeah, if you
I do too. I do too.
So Scott,
yeah,
I guess my question is more around, you know, how do you measure and justify the ROI on something like chatbots, and also related but unrelated, it's that handoff, right, between the automation part and the people, like that, I would imagine complicates how you measure ROI.
Yeah, so great question. So for ROI, what we did is we kept track of, so if we could, of course, identify the person, the customer, we kept track of the reps who touched that person. So think of it like almost like how you do attribution, like first touch, last touch of reps, because sometimes 2 reps would touch that person. And so we did, and then we would tie it to sales data. So we knew the sales data for the, right. So we knew that customer came in from chat and talked to Joe. And then if that person bought, we would be able to track that on the back end, matching their email address. Now, we did also, so we also looked at attribution of like, was it first touch via chat or not? And so it gets a little sticky with attribution. So it depends how you handle it. So we had, I'm really getting the weeds here, so stop me. So we looked at the chat, we tied it to sales, and then we would use kind of a linear attribution model where we would say, okay, well, that guy actually came in from a paid ad, so we'll give paid ad credit. We'll also give the chat guy credit for that as well. So, and then the handoff. So, you know, I think it's, every company's a little bit different. So, you know, we try to determine what resources we had, how much capacity we could handle. We started there, and then what questions, you know, we thought would be like easier to automate, right, and lead with those.
Cool. So the other related question is, it sounds like somebody had already decided to invest in Intercom. If you were starting with trying to pitch this, right, how would you approach?
You know, HubSpot has a great product. No, so the way I would pitch it is, I would try and work out as you know, a test for 3 to 6 months first, and work, hopefully Intercom or Drift or HubSpot can give you that deal, and approach it that way. and then, you have to identify what research. So I would approach it that way. I would try and the best you can to build out a potential like ROI model, and you'll have to leverage, your other channels and seeing conversion from that. So, yeah.
Can I purchase from HubSpot just the chatbot, or is it part of a suite with other things?
It's part of the, I hope I have this right. So maybe, Dan will correct me here, but it's part of the Service Hub suite.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Service Hub suite. Okay.
Yep, that sounds right.
Hi, Scott. This is Athar from India.
Hey.
So one question that I had was any use case wherein the chatbot can be implemented on Facebook or WhatsApp?
Great question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so because I'm looking at from a perspective where in India, specifically WhatsApp is something which is the use is quite on a rise, and we are looking at something related to that.
Yeah, so Intercom and I think Drift, so that you would have to use Facebook, you'd have to use Facebook Messenger. Yeah. But Facebook Messenger is integrated with Intercom, and maybe Drift as well. And so basically, when I showed you the admin module or what the moderators see, but you'd have to use their tool. And I think it's the same for WhatsApp as well. And so you bring up a really good point here. So somewhat related is, we can do email and we can do chat, but certain parts of the world, you're not going to be able to dethrone WhatsApp in terms of usage, right? And so that's a constant, like, how do you integrate WhatsApp into your infrastructure?
And with WhatsApp payment gateway also coming the way, chatbot would play a very important role over there because the transaction is also going to happen through WhatsApp.
Yeah, no, great point. So so on Drift and Intercom, there's no transactions going on there, but there's a whole world out there, India, China, et cetera, that are doing transactions on WhatsApp.
Yeah. Fair point. Thanks.
Yeah, no, really good
Thanks
question.
for joining us, Athar. Athar, I think it must be past midnight for you.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock, 1 a.m.
Amazing. You stay up late.
Yeah.
So, Jeev,
Hey, Scott. Yeah. Hi, Dennis.
Hi.
So I'm in the area, I work extensively in the area of enterprise automation and AI. So my question to Scott is more about how Udacity has been handling the content requirements, because you have so much of content that's being built into the platform, and to support queries around the content that you're creating or courses that are being created, how much of effort do you still see happening when you're driving conversations through a chatbot?
Great question. So we've built some tools to pull. So I would say it's very light AI, machine learning that we're doing with Intercom. Like, if I wouldn't even call it that. I mean, but that is a space that all the players in that want to move to, right? The Intercoms, et cetera. And there's a lot of, tools out there. So we basically have built some of our own tools to integrate that into Intercom. And sometimes we have to create the content. So a example was, since I worked on, managed the website, we built out these learning paths. Right. So our courses were structured by school, but there's also like how people want to learn. Like, I'll simplify it. Like, they might take Excel first, and they might take SQL and then machine learning. So we built out that content on the website, and then we included that content, whether it was adding it to our content library for the chat, or whether it was PDF files to the chat experience, if that makes sense. So we had to kind of build our own tools to make that jump from the classroom or the website into Intercom.
Got it. Yeah, but do you still? What I'm getting from this is that you're saying that still is a major part of the work that goes behind running the chatbot, right?
Yeah, it's really important. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I think a lot of companies are running in, like, HubSpot, or, you know, they have a lot of these companies have extensive knowledge management systems with lots of information. And I think they're all kind of working on how to take that content and push it easily into chat, or at least make it accessible via chat.
Yeah, the biggest challenge that you know, everyone's trying to solve is how do you manage, or how do you leverage the data that you have onto specific workflows that really help the user? Because you have tons of content, but the user may want only, the user need has to be met by whatever the chatbot is putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you need to engage the user and solve a problem during that conversation for it to really make sense.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk more about this sometime, feel free to contact me, because I think it's, you know, it's something that is on my list to work on in my current role as well. So
Cool. I'll surely reach out,
yeah.
Scott. All right, thanks.
Other questions?
Any other questions? Amy, thanks for joining us. We are on the tail end.
Yes,
do you have a question on chatbots?
I do. I really, really hope the session was recorded. Yay, I see the recording button is going. I'm so sorry I'm
recording.
late, guys.
No worries.
I guess I would really like to know where other people are using chatbots in sort of their funnel. So like, for one of the challenges that we have is we have maybe 8 or 9 different variations that I've seen my clients use them. So for example, I have some clients that in non-COVID world use them in the auto sales space. So we've pre-programmed 10 or 12 automated sort of conversation points. And I have other clients that are wanting to apply it in that similar sort of vein of answering, the basic vein of answering those key questions. But for me, where I'm really trying to find a way to integrate them in the business that I'm running is there are maybe 8 or 10 conversations on 5 platforms that we need to have over and over and over again. And I'd like to kind of get an understanding from the rest of the group as you've deployed chatbots on other platforms. So let's say not just within your website, but you're deploying them in Twitter, in Facebook, and in other spaces, how you've seen your curing time in terms of getting the process just right. How, give me a high level understanding of, if you're really comfortable running them on your website, it shouldn't be that difficult, or it is that difficult, or just different mistakes you've made so I don't make them too.
I think the conversations matter depending on the channel that your end user is reaching out to you on. For example, if you're doing a chatbot on a website versus if you're doing a chat on Facebook Messenger that you've added as a channel, the conversation can be very different depending on what the user's need is. So that's where the core of designing of the conversation comes into play.
Okay, so kind of using the same methodology I use when I'm building a conversation funnel, where I know I'm driving them through A, B to C, and the same way I'm looking at what's the UX of that platform, applying the same sort of ideologies in this space.
Yeah, for example, on the website, you may have an open-ended conversation which says, hey, I'm welcome to the website name. I'm here to help you with whatever queries you have. That could be one way of doing it. Second thing, you may have specific menus you add to the welcome message, which says, click here to do this, or, you know, do you want to know more about services, support, or something else? Whereas on Facebook, it may be a campaign you're running, and I, as a user, come in and I just want to reach out and talk about something. So you should be able to have a broader view, or, you know, broader capability of handling conversations on Facebook in that sense.
Awesome, that was a great answer, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so after you listen to if you watch the reruns, if you like reruns, you can always feel free to reach out to me too.
I absolutely will, thank you, Scott.
All right, and with that, I think we will be calling it closed for now. There are meetups, so Thursday is now our day. So I think for the next 5 or 6 Thursdays in a row we have a meetup going. So check our meetup page. Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
And thanks
great.
everyone for joining us as well. Stay safe and we'll see you around.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
you.
Talk soon.
Thanks, Scott.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Dennis.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.